Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me this week, Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on is today we're going to be talking all about the Fallout show. We talked about it a little bit last week. I since then went through and finished the whole thing. Cam has finished it. So we're going to do a big old spoiler-casty thing on Season 1 of the Fallout show that recently just got announced for a confirmed Season 2. And since we give kind of like spoiler-free impressions in last week's episode, we're probably going to just dive right into full-on spoilers this time around. So if that's not your bag, if you're not interested, feel free to check out, and we will see you next time. But yeah, before we do hop in, if you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. So yeah, diving straight on in, without further ado, Cam, Fallout, full on, like teasing at the end, New Vegas.
Oh yeah, let's go. Let's talk about it, folks.
While simultaneously dismissing a lot of like New Vegas stuff.
there's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of like, it's never been outright said. People are just kind of like interpreting like chalkboards in the background and kind of like things that are laid up to be visual clues.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a big distinction. People being like, well, there is a like, and so like let's hop into it.
In the timeline, I'm in particular referring to the fact that this show destroys Shady Sands
Yes.
and says Shady Sands got destroyed in 2277, but is alive and well when along with the NCR in 2281 in the Fallout timeline of things when Fallout New Vegas takes place.
So they have not, there's been a big speculation surrounding this where people are saying, well, hold on a second. Did the nuke go off in 2077 or did, because it says, so before the nuke went off, there was a billboard that said it was the second capital of the new California Republic. Shady Sands is still the capital of New California Republic in Fallout New Vegas. So some people who try to salvage the timeline, so to speak, to keep New Vegas canon, brought up that.
I mean, at the same time, like companies that were created for Fallout New Vegas are in the big Vault-Tec conspiracy thing. Big MT,
literally, Mr. House himself is.
Mr. House is in that scene, which is a fun little nod. And like the aerospace tech company that is was created in Fallout New Vegas is there as well. So it's Repcon. So yeah, like it was such a weird experience watching this, especially watching this relatively hot on the heels of the H-Bomber Guy videos that I finally got around to this year.
We finally got around to watching his New Vegas one.
His Fallout 3 and New Vegas ones, where he very much chastises, and this very much feels like Todd Howard trying to do away with like Fallout 1 and 2, like all the Shady Sands stuff in particular. Like nuking Shady Sands in general is like completely undoing what those first two games built up. And it was like, oh, that's like just trying to undo anybody else's work kind of thing.
Well, you could also look at it. It's also a weird thing too, because in a lot of ways, New Vegas did the same thing for the leaked version of, like, we now know what Fallout 3 was originally going to be when it was still under I forgot what the original Black Rock Isle
sounds right.
company back when the people who then left and then became Obsidian later on. Originally New Canaan was going to be the focus of it, and it was still going to be Mojave, but it was going to be more focused in the Utah area. And so we got to see kind of Obsidian take up that torch with Honest Hearts DLC, one of like the best DLCs of all time. The thing about New Vegas is it isn't just like an incredible core game. Its DLCs for the most part are spectacular. And have like Joshua Graham is still like I still watch Joshua Graham edits on like TikTok and YouTube and stuff, because it's just like he's so like, it's such a damn good NPC and like companion character, and it's such an important character to the like the lore of the like Mojave and all of that. There's been a big speculation, but one of the big ones that came through that a lot of people are talking about is the fall of Shady Sands not the bomb going off in Shady Sands, but rather when Shady Sands lost itself as the capital of Like, is that the start of a decline that saw Shady Sands lose its capital ship to somewhere else? Whatever is presumably but also at the same time, like, we know the NCR is in a steep decline too, because there's multiple people being referred to as president of the NCR, and it looks like there's like broken up different like things going on.
Even
like,
that like that's a whole other aspect of this show where I'm like, I don't understand at all what you're going for, because we have Moldaver at the end at like an NCR headquarters versus at the beginning when she is a raider. And it's like,
we think
what's
like
going
those
on there?
Were those raiders, or were they actually like former NCR people turned raider? Like, the other thing about hers is she like, because her NCR headquarters thing was like not like a like printed out thing, it was like painted on a sheet and like put up.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's very much like,
or maybe they took over that from the NCR, and she's not an NCR, she's raider still, or
she's trying to be a leader of the NCR. Like, what state is the NCR actually in? We now know for a fact that the NCR has hit a decline.
Mm-hmm.
And this is interesting.
I mean, that's like that happens and exists within New Vegas in particular, where like NCR is super stretched thin.
Yes.
So that makes sense, amidst this timeline. But then there's also like the whole like, well, if Hank knew Moldaver when she showed up, because he would have remembered, the the destruction of Shady Sands, 20 years ago, like, he knew that they weren't really the Vault 32 people from the jump, and what was going on there. Why did he?
Yeah.
It's like, there's definitely some internal logic of the show where it's like, it feels like you changed mid-course and didn't like write backwards to make it make sense.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I haven't like gone back and rewatched it, but these are definitely questions I have kind of after the ending of this show of like, but what? And including in the fact like the show, I think, intentionally doesn't explain why Moldaver exists pre-war.
We don't know why Moldaver still alive, because
yeah.
she was Miss Williams.
Yeah.
To the Ghoul, played by Walton Goggins, one of the one of the best TV roles I think we've seen in a long time. I think it's the best TV role I've seen since Pedro Pascal as Joel. I think it's that level of caliber. Now, granted, not nearly as dramatic, so to speak. Although there is like that incredibly dramatic moment in his wife's office when he is hearing. He's like, I'm just gonna spy in. Like, what's my wife not telling me? And he like clues into like the biggest meeting that you could possibly clue into.
Yeah, that's for a lore nerd like you, the big like, did Vault-Tec drop the first nuke? Because that's pretty much what they say their plan is to do, and yeah, that's obviously what he's responding to. There is like I mean, given the rest of the franchise, that also makes perfect sense, and I like that they spend so much time in the series really setting that capitalist bent of like, of course Vault-Tec needs to do that because they need to protect their shareholders or eliminate their shareholders effectively. But hey, their shareholders will survive because they'll be in the vaults.
Their shareholders will be in the vaults. And also the whole thing about the vaults is like, hey, we don't have enough capital for all the vaults, but what if we left it in your hand?
Yeah, if we partner with all of you, you can all kind of, go deranged crazy in terms of the things you want to do in those vaults and see, may the best vault win, basically.
And it's interesting because like the one person who is like sitting back and watching all of this is Mr. House. He doesn't really participate in any of it. Mm-hmm. And then we like, that also ties into what we see in New Vegas, where House was like, the vaults were dumb and like, like the vaults were necessary, but they were also dumb. Vault-Tec sucked.
Yeah.
I had a better idea.
What was the plan for a vault of Gary clones? What was going on there?
Yeah.
Who thought that was is that some West Tech manager named Gary that thought it was a cool idea?
Something like that. Yeah.
I liked that the eking out over the course of the series of like Bud Askins and Bud's Buds being the secret experiment going on in Vault 30, 31, 32, and 33.
Well, when we get that spoiler, you're like, oh man, who was Hank then before? And it turns out, Hank was an executive assistant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hank was a Bud's Buds. That's why he got brought into the program. Otherwise, like when the Ghoul says, yeah, I know you back when you picked up my wife's laundry. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh
yeah, sick
burn. I think that there is wiggle room on it. However, I think that we also, because of the tease we see at the end of the show, House's plan was to expand New Vegas to being like a sprawling metropolis by like 2092 or 2092. And I think that was what's interesting for me though is it's like we see like a couple of like fields of like broken down Securitrons. And my initial thought process is because when you take, if
You're saying like just in that wide shot, you
can see a couple.
I've not like thoroughly examined that.
I spent a little bit of time on it because I was excited. But I think because you get a clue at the end of when you take over Hoover Dam for House.
Yeah. I mean, that's like ultimately, if they're going this route and want to keep the game's canon, they've picked some sort of canon ending for Fallout 4. They're going to have to pick some sort of canon ending for Fallout New Vegas.
Yep. I think that what's interesting about that also, I want to point out, if you were watching this and you didn't know, when they mentioned the Commonwealth isn't just the like Boston area. General areas like the United States turned into commonwealths prior to the Great War, for people who don't know, in order to conserve resources and better distribute stuff and better administrate stuff. It was during the like rise of fascism that would lead to the Enclave having control, like the people who would become the Enclave having control of the United States government. So,
see, I don't see how you see Securitrons in that wide shot. Like,
I thought I saw like some like light blue. There's light blue stuff in there, like light blue piles of like robots, right?
I mean,
not clearly. I guess
it's a wide enough shot that you're looking at New Vegas and maybe like Good Springs or Nipton or something outside. Like you're seeing a small town outside of it, but like I don't think there's anything like concrete enough to be able to see like, oh, this is specifically like something at the scale of a Securitron pile, I guess.
I thought I saw like what I thought, but then again, yeah, I could like it's difficult to kind of discern like how big some of those areas are from that wide shot, I guess. But
I mean, like on the scale of the New Vegas, which is obviously the center of focus of it, there is a something closer in the foreground that appears to have like a little smokestack coming up. But I would say based on the scale we're looking at, it's more likely a settlement than a pile of broken robots. But yeah, that's just like because I had that pulled up on it as part of a GameSpot's Easter eggs thing.
I shouldn't have just typed in New Vegas show because all I'm seeing is like stuff for shows in Vegas.
Sure,
great. I'm trying to look up like
now you gotta be a little more specific. You gotta probably include Fallout in the mix there. But yeah, I it was fascinating that being like the closing image, because throughout so much of this, I was like, wow, they're really trying to just undo so much of the non-Bethesda work of the of the Fallout series and really focus on like, here are the things that Bethesda has done with like the ideas of the Fallout series. Because I was like, even going into it, I watched a few videos and people were like, yeah, it's not really, it's not really tied to the games or anything. And it was realizing the context of, oh, the Kind of Funny guys didn't play Fallout 1 and 2, so they don't have context for Shady Sands.
I'm now realizing what I thought was like a pile of Securitrons, I think is like a town.
Yeah, that's what I think that's what you were alluding to.
I was alluding. It's the one on the far right side that I thought was more of it, but now that I look at it, that is more of, now that I think about it a bit more and look at it a bit, like I was just pausing the Amazon stream, so I didn't like pull up a screenshot of it when I was looking over it. I just was like studying it while I was watching the show.
Yeah.
Because once I saw, I mean, you see the what is it, like Lucky 11?
Lucky 37.
Lucky 37, yeah. You see Lucky 37 here, and it's just like, oh, like, oh my gosh. But yeah, no, yeah.
Lucky 38.
Lucky 38. There we go. Yeah, no, I definitely thought these were Securitrons, but I think it's a town. So my thought process is the fall of, because the NCR basically swears revenge when you take over Hoover Dam for House.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought is the thing that kept New Vegas from like sprawling out and House executing his plans. One, because at the end of the day, House does always fuck up his big grand master plan in some way, or something goes wrong. And he's like, how could I have expected that I didn't have this lucky chip that I needed, like the program chip that I needed for it? Or like, it's like, these are obvious flaws in some plans. Like, he's not the greatest genius. Like, this is very much like this is a genius capitalist, which ergo means that he's also somewhat of a dumbass. But yeah, I can see it'd be like, yeah, things just didn't work out for House after he took over. Like, unexpected things happened. But my original thought is the fall of Shady Sands like on a timeline trajectory of, hey, this is this initial fall of the New Republic, or the New California Republic. is 2277, and then 2285, 2286 or something, that bomb drops, because if you're like, okay, Maximus is like, it dropped 20 years ago, and you're like, I don't know about, like, I don't think that's necessarily accurate, is it? Because at that point it would be, there's some time stuff that, like, time-wise, that doesn't make sense.
I mean, I would assume he's rounding in there.
Yeah.
I mean, he's effectively, like, I like that it ties back to, like, the beginning of his stuff.
He has a
of like
int, so
he you know, the description of, like, no, the bombs dropped when I was a kid. Like, as you know, a Fallout fan, you're like, that doesn't make sense. What are you talking about? The bombs? No, the bombs dropped 200 years ago, my dude. And for us to find out at the end, oh no, like, the Shady Sands bomb was dropped seemingly by Hank. And there's also that whole, like, where did he get a bomb? How did that happen?
Yep.
Which I imagine obviously would be explored in a season 2. Yeah. That said, like, there's also this part of me that, like, having played extensive New Vegas, so much so, and you know, inspired so that I rebooted up New Vegas following finishing the series. I'm like, I know the New Vegas skyline and notably the Lucky 38, but, like, for an audience who is new to the series, coming in and watching this, like, did they look at that last thing and be like, I don't know what that's supposed to be?
Is that the Sky Needle? Is that Seattle?
Yeah, like, do exactly. Do they know that it's, you know, Las Vegas, New Vegas? Speaking of the landmarks, though, I love that, like, I'm especially interested to see what the, like, cold fusion future of,
oh my gosh,
of the California area does. And I love the Hollywood sign coming to light. There's way too much of the Hollywood sign still intact, but I loved that it was lit up with, like, a presented by Nuka-Cola.
Yes, I jumped for that. I loved it.
Fucking capitalism.
Love it. We're also just, like, you know, we're both big fans of the Fallout franchise, so, like,
Yeah.
Nuka-Cola anything.
Mm-hmm.
You have 2 bottles of Nuka-Cola right behind you that you're keeping for,
I
like,
do.
collector stuff.
Yeah, my Nuka Quantum.
Yep. Man, now there's an aspect about it that I love, because it is such an exciting thing for them to be like, hey, by the way, but I was watching a TikTok and somebody said, hey, I kind of think that this is like a monkey paw situation. Like, we wanted Shady Sands because it's in California, and they gave us that, but they nuked it. Mm-hmm. It's like, we want New Vegas, but it's like, what happened to New Vegas? Like, are we also getting a monkey paw situation for New Vegas? Like, what's the situation?
Yeah.
Somebody also pointed out, I want to get your take on it if you hadn't heard this yet. Odd that there's a whole lot of Roman names in the Brotherhood of Steel, their California chapter.
I mean, I feel like they always had that, like, pretentiousness to them.
Yeah, but it was usually something more like Anglic, like
Anglican stuff.
Yeah, like Anglican, like the whole Knights of, like, King Arthur style thing, like Dane or other stuff like that. This one, like, but for Maximus, Thaddeus, Titus, like, these are very, very, I'll just say it outright, these are very Legion-esque names.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a very weird path for the Legion to have taken.
I mean, if the Legion falls after Caesar, and especially
like the Brotherhood is not really a huge faction in New Vegas either.
No, they're
not.
Like,
they are very, like, they were going back to their, like, roots of being very isolationist and, like, not, like, Fallout 3 is the one that really made them, like, we're going to put them front and center, and Fallout 4 obviously too, of, like, they're going to be the lawful protectors of the land. It's like, that's not really what they were doing in the first couple games. Especially not what they did in New Vegas. So it'd be weird if, like the Legion, you know, got into that vault and then, like, headed west and, like, infiltrated. Well, I guess because it's also not. I mean, like.
So here's the thing: if House is Eddie's canon,
like the base of the base where, like, Maximus and stuff are happening seems to be more east, actually, because like, they have the Pride win from Fallout 4.
They do. So, like, this is, like, a big question that kind of gets brought up is, like, what state is the Brotherhood in now, right? Like, because if they're stretched sea to shining sea, sea to radioactive sea, Like, are we like, what are we dealing with here? And I think that also adds another flavor of like, okay, well, let's take, for example, let's say House winning is the canon ending, right? That means that the courier kills off the Brotherhood of Steel, wipes them out. Because that's a mission you have to do for the House ending. You have to wipe them out, which sucked for me because I gained their trust implicitly. And so I was like, went into their headquarters. I was like, hey.
Plus, you probably lose Felicia Day as a companion.
Oh, I recruited her, left her in the hotel, and didn't really mention that I killed the Brotherhood after that. I lied. I lied to her to keep her in my party. I kept everybody in that, like, my hotel suite. It was sick. But yeah, I think when I'm looking at, like, okay, so we say, like, let's say the House ending is canon. Brotherhood is extinct in New Vegas. Whatever survivors, remnants, go west. You have, the Legion under, like, with no legate leading them, and Caesar dead, breaks up. That's the canon. Like, if the House ending is canon, then all the legionaries break up, and go their separate ways. They break up back up into tribes and stuff. And like, that's the fate of the Legion then. And it wouldn't be surprising to me if members of the Legion then went west.
Yeah. I mean, there's also, it just, in whatever way this theory is going to play out, it ties into, was Maximus the kid's given name, or was it a name he chose? Were the Legion's names given names, or were they names inflicted upon them by Caesar? Like, what is the state of like, what does their name mean in this post-apocalypse?
If you get one of those Latin names, it means like you got it from Caesar, for being like recognized as a legionary. Non-legions, like Legion affiliated tribes, like I think it's the White Legs in Honest Hearts. They have their whole thing, like, where they're trying to join the Legion, but they're like really not up to snuff, and Caesar doesn't care for them. And so like they don't curry Caesar's favor, even though they do his dirty work in New Canaan. You have like, anyway, but back, like, so yeah, that kind of brings up like, what happens? Like, is it that? Are they like, oh, by the way, yeah, no, like Maximus, it wasn't his given name. That's the name that he took on. If that's the case, like, does that mean that there's a like pseudo, like, not necessarily Legion culture, but is there like Legion remnants that kind of like melded into the Brotherhood of Steel at that point? Is that why the Brotherhood of Steel is so, like, Brotherhood of Steel, Fallout 1 and 2 are those West Coast isolationists. It isn't until Fallout 3 where you get the Brotherhood, the Brotherhood schism that happens in the pit, prior to the events of Fallout 3. That leads, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Leon is the Brotherhood leader in Fallout 3.
Lion is I think the one that you work with closely. Yeah. I don't think she's the leader, but she's like the knight that you.
Yeah, there's her, like, the actual leader there. He's like, after the pit, we realized that the Brotherhood was wrong, and we're going to be more open to stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then in Fallout 4, yeah, we see like the Brotherhood has sort of like taken on some old stuff, but also at the same time, there's a whole lot of things going on with the Brotherhood in Fallout 4 that I never fully explored. Because I've never been a big Brotherhood dude. I wasn't an Enclave dude in Fallout 3, but I also wasn't the biggest like Brotherhood guy. Mainly because I was a super good person unless there was somebody asking for water out in the wasteland. And I did the thing where I was like, I don't have water, therefore I must end your suffering. And so I killed the strangers out in the wasteland that needed water.
Yeah, I'm pulling up. So yeah, there is Elder Lyons, and then Sarah Lyons on the East Coast, Arthur Maxon. Yeah, I'm looking to see just like who are the other notable, Brotherhood of Steel characters.
And is the Brotherhood of Steel, because did you play through the Brotherhood ending for one of your through Fallout 4?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm trying to really recall.
That's a whole other thing. Is like I don't thoroughly recall the ins and outs of a lot of the lore here. I'm just kind of like in broad strokes here, the things I remember.
But yeah. Anyway, yeah. So like that's a theory that I found was pretty interesting. Yeah. So like general thoughts on it. Like, are you like, how do you feel about it? Granted, like it's yeah.
Overall, like I had a ton of fun. The bigger thing for me more so than like the lore implication, because there's also that whole like, okay, if you don't like that this, maybe undoes New Vegas or whatever, it's like you can still use your own lore. Like this doesn't take away the fun that you have with New Vegas. Go play New Vegas, enjoy. Like you can just, if somebody brings up Shady Sands is alive and well, you can be like, yeah, it is. You're right. Like that's perfectly fine. Or if you really want to play into it, you can be like, there seems something sinister about that. Maybe Shady Sands isn't really alive and well. And it's the lie that New Vegas believes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it got me to reinstall New Vegas on my Xbox and like jump in, having fun with that. I just got to Nipton,
Nice.
and like it's fun seeing like the things come back to me in terms of like, oh, that's right, like this is where I'm gonna meet like Caesar's Legion for the first time, really, and there's like I'm about to encounter a whole bunch of people being crucified and like the shit that's going on there. Like I'd completely forgotten that Wayne Newton is the voice of Mr. New Vegas. And I was like, oh, that's right, good for him.
Wayne Newton.
Like a lounge act.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. I was thinking of Ted Nugent for some reason. I was like, oh, is he in that?
No,
Oh, gross.
Way off.
Yeah, very off.
At first, I thought it was Johnny Cash. I was like, well, that's not right. That's not Johnny Cash. And I was like, all right, Wayne Newton.
Wayne Newton. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. So yeah, like they so effectively nail the vibe of Fallout that I like. It is a great adaptation in that way. It was very much and it's very much the kind of Fallout adaptation I've wanted for a long time.
Absolutely.
I've long been in the camp of, hey, a Fallout series a la a True Detective would be incredible, where it's like a different origin each season. We see kind of a start, middle, and end each season of some new vault dweller, and we get to see the weird stuff that happened in their vault growing up or something like that. And so I thought this did a great job as a version of that idea. Obviously, I don't think they'll go the anthology route.
No,
apart from like maybe they'll add like another point of view character or something in season 2, a la we get more from Hank or something like that. But yeah, I loved the Lucy story stuff. The performer, the actor there, Ella Purcell, I believe.
Ella Purcell.
Ella
Purnell.
She's great. She does a great job kind of encapsulating that like wide-eyed naivete of a vault dweller.
Okie dokie,
indeed. Kind of coming out into the wilderness, seeing how much this place sucks, but still trying to stay positive and still trying to be good. Which is very much like the way I play those games typically. I loved the ghoul as like the chaotic evil kind of character because he's been living in this world for 200 some odd years. Though another thing that kind of like comes up at the end is like, I've been waiting to ask somebody about this for 200 years. Where's my fucking family? And it's like, well, the first scene we saw was you riding off with your daughter.
Yes, which brings up those big questions.
So like what, like the presumption was you got ghoulified in that blast and she either did or didn't and died. But like the fact that this is an unknown quantity, like I fully get that. Like, okay, you're trying to figure out what happened to your wife. Is she out there alive and well still somewhere from a vault? Is she what's going on there? And did she do all of this? Was this all her, fault? But like that's just another one of those, like, it's a hard line in the moment, but then you think about it for a second, you're like, wait, the last time we saw him with his family, he was with his daughter. When the bombs were dropping. So the
bombs were dropping, but it also was like he was like pretty far away from like the initial like landing sites.
I mean, he was far away from like the first bomb that drops, but like when you go back and watch that that clip of him like riding on horseback, like one drops much closer that is absolutely going to catch him in the blast.
Which makes it brings up the question of like what's going to happen with that. There's the. What is it? It's the my whole thought is like, okay, yeah, does that mean like Vault Tech security came by and like threw him off the horse, grabbed his daughter, took his wife and daughter, went to a vault, and he was like caught like stuck out there? There's an old show that was on NBC like some odd years back. That was like The End of the World. It was like a cross promotional British like BBC and NBC show. And they like one of the things that happened at the very end is like people get caught outside of like the like last secure vault for mankind. And what ends up happening with that? So like, and so my thought is like, is that like going to be his situation where he's stuck outside the vault, and he's going to be like ghoulified over time like that? Like what ends up happening? Or is he similar to like, this is a great thing also is in Fallout 4, there's Hancock, who's your ghoul companion, mentions he was ghoulified by like a drug. He wasn't ghoulified by radiation.
We see Thaddeus get like ghoulified by that like snake oil salesman's drug.
Who, rewatching that like a couple scenes with him, I realized, oh, he's like a ghoul in like makeup.
I didn't even catch that. Then
he's super like raw pink around the eye. Like there's a lot of like ghoul signs on him.
Which then adds this extra layer back to the like, what are the people in the first episode doing with the chicken? Like, what is the chicken supposed to do for the ghoul? and the first time we meet that character, he's fucking chickens.
Yeah, well, I mean, ghouls still get sexual satisfaction. So
but I'm saying like they bring the chicken to the ghoul to like know if he's gone feral or what, or you know what is he doing kind of thing. And so is the implication that like they were bringing it there thinking that he was going to fuck that chicken?
Do feral ghouls fuck chickens?
Do normal ghouls fuck chickens? Because if that's what you're saying, the other guy is just a.
He'll try to attack them instead of going for the chicken to fuck.
Yeah.
It doesn't Walton Goggins take like the ghoul takes the chicken with him at the end of that scene?
Maybe.
I think he does. I think he picks up and takes it with him.
Yeah.
That's some gross connotations there. Sorry, folks.
Yeah. But yeah, I that was one. So that I think is my biggest like I like an element I knew was going to be a natural piece of the show, but like I still didn't like it. No, the gore of the show.
That's fair.
So like when Thaddeus like pulls off his sock at one point and you see like how fucked up his foot is, I was like, oh god damn it.
Yeah.
Yep. And so like when he's doing that with the ghoul later on, I'm just kind of like watching it like this, not really like with my hand over my face, kind of avoiding the more violent.
You're a bit squeamish. It's okay.
I'm relatively squeamish, yeah. And it's the kind of thing of like, oh, the graphics are bad enough in the games that it doesn't like hey, I don't really want a Fallout that looks super realistic, because when it looks super realistic, I don't want to do those things.
Yeah.
I have found myself way less inclined to aim for headshots when I'm in VATS these days, and I aim more for arms and legs to debilitate my enemies, the powder gangers that I'm taking out left and right now in New Vegas.
Nice.
But yeah, I thought that was a shout out to a lot of the stuff surrounding Thaddeus, including him kind of having the ghoulification effect brought on, and then him like at the radio station with Fred Armisen. I was like, all right. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Fred Armisen, but if you're going to use him, that's a fun way to use him as the polka guy. As the guy who does the like fiddle music radio station.
That's right, the fiddle music, yeah.
Because obviously, you know, he is no three dog.
No, not at all. And I love that they play into that. They're like, we're not going to give you a three dog. We're not going to give you a Mr. New Vegas. We're going to give you a straight up just like annoying guy, and who does that better than Fred Armisen?
Yeah. But I love that like moment of like, hey, nice job on all the booby traps out here, because so many people are trying to kill him.
Yes.
he is set up
there's so many
perimeter.
Like dead bodies around and everything, and it's like, it's great. One thing, shout out to like them being like, yeah, no, we're gonna have booby traps actually, because booby traps are a fairly big part of Fallout as far as like things that happen when you're not paying attention.
Yeah. I was a little bummed there weren't more, and that it was like it's really just set up in that scene, and the only one who actually trips one in that scene is Thaddeus, as the arrow goes through the arrow goes through his neck, and he's like, "Why am I not dead? I think you might be a ghoul, dude." oh man, the Brotherhood's gonna kill me.
Yeah. And she's like, wait, why is your organization gonna kill him? It's like, and Dennis goes, it's a complicated organization. And I'm like, I have never heard a more like perfect descriptor for the Brotherhood of Steel. It's a complicated organization.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good. So yeah, he has to run off and like gives him the head. And it's like, they kind of like make
they make amends.
Yeah, make amends. And then we get like this big moment of like, oh, this head works just like this head. It's like, that is such a 4-int move to do, like 4 intelligence move to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love that they published their like actual
They
stats.
just need a head. Yeah. It's like, well, they don't even know that they're out there looking for a head unless that got relayed back to the Brotherhood. They're still thinking they're looking for the scientists.
Yeah. And like how are they going to check the scientists? And then they straight up like have a thing to like read for the cold fusion and, or like read the identity, I guess. And it's like, you're so, oh my God, Maximus, you're such a dumb himbo and I love you.
Yeah. I think we're probably both on the same page in that like Maximus's storyline stuff was the weakest of the bunch. Yeah,
because his stuff starts off interesting and then slows down to a like grinding halt until like episode 5.
It was, I mean, like I liked when he was much more nebulous as a character. Like I like the did he put the razor blade in the boot or not kind of sentiment.
I like that, yeah.
So like when it comes out at the end that Dane did it to themselves, I was like, I don't like that choice. And for like, I thought it was initially them like saying it just to save Maximus's life, but then when like they confide in Maximus saying like I really just didn't want to go out in the wilds, like
that
no,
totally,
it was way more interesting when it was probably him that did it.
And you doing this to save his life because you're trying to save him because like you care about him. Yeah. That's far more interesting.
Yeah.
That taking that and being like, I'm being complicit in the harm you've done to me to save your life because you matter to me.
Yeah.
Builds a much more complex relationship between Dane and Maximus that is actually fascinating to like go through. And so getting that kind of like, no, it was Dane. It's like, why are you whitewashing our very like neutral like wasteland player, like Fallout player? Like if he's supposed to be the neutral playthrough, sometimes that means you do a little good, sometimes you do a little bad, sometimes you do big good, sometimes you do big bad. And it made a much more nuanced and interesting character in those first episodes of like he lets Knight Titus die.
Yeah. I think like him letting Knight Titus die, while very foreseeable, was probably the most interesting thing he does in the series, I think. Because I feel like he's not like he is a 4 intelligence character. He is an incredibly inept person. Like it's how did you survive? There's no way you've actually made it this long in this world, especially if you didn't have power armor, because that's the only thing that gets him out of some of the stuff. Yeah.
Also gets him in some stuff.
Sure.
Like he gets in some trouble because of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the fact that they kind of like they bring up, and I think the theme of his is like the armor doesn't make the knight.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is the there's a lot. I do appreciate Maximus as a character, but he has such a like he's in such a character rut for half the series.
Yeah, he doesn't feel like he has his own agency.
That's another problem.
I think is what it is for me.
Absolutely.
Like his like motivating factor is I want to hurt the people who hurt me. And it's like, but you don't even know the people who hurt you, seemingly. And
also the vault you want to go to is the people who hurt you.
Yeah, he doesn't read neutral to me so much as he reads influenced by whoever he's around. So when the Brotherhood of Steel are a little bit more vile and dicks with like Knight Titus, he's a dick. When he, gets in league with Lucy, he ends up being a little nicer and a little better. And then he goes back to the Brotherhood and immediately is ready to like turn to save his own skin kind of thing. And like it's very much like what was his end goal of going to the observatory?
Well, it was to save Lucy, and then he was going to try to escape with Lucy and her dad.
Was it like I mean he doesn't really seem to be making an effort to save Lucy through a lot of the initial bits of that fight, so much as he's just trying to not die.
Well, I mean I think that's kind of the priority when you're hopping hot off a Hellbird.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to
Vertibird.
Thank you. Vertibird. You're just trying to, I think that's kind of that moment is like, oh, he's just trying to survive. This is chaos. This is chaotic.
Yeah.
They kind of make a whole point of like, it's like, yeah, war never changes. And you see like this skirmish in a courtyard of the old observatory. And it's people fighting with flags. And it's like, it's done very comedically, but it's also like very much like, yeah, this is the squabble. This is the problem of, this is why society can't really get back on its right foot is because of things like this.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that like neither this resurge, like this like leftover of the New California Republic and the Brotherhood of Steel, like should they actually be opposites? And it's like, but this is also like the big Fallout 1 and 2 thing of like the Brotherhood of Steel aren't necessarily bad people, but neither is especially in Fallout 2, neither is the New California Republic, but like, where is the, like, they want, it's, oh, there are not, none of them are like quote unquote bad people or quote unquote, they are all bad people. They all want different things for the wasteland and they're willing to do whatever they can to make the thing they want happen.
Yeah. Everybody thinks their way is the right way.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, the show very much kind of calls that out. And,
it does a great job of it.
That's the central conceit of why war never changes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved, the ghouls like relationship to the T-45 armor coming back into play at the end there, like him having that great, like he went to war in the pre-war and like having that confrontation with Bud Askins of like that, like those issues led a lot of good men to die kind of thing. And it was just an oversight for you pathetic Weasley middle manager.
Yep.
So yeah, I loved like him
still
being able to exploit that weakness. I mean, it also kind of begs like, well, why didn't he do it in that first fight with Maximus? But you know, whatever. Him doing it where it mattered to really rain down. And then there's also the idea of like, oh yeah, he as a ghoul, he probably has a little bit of night vision that he's kind of getting to exploit in there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's using all of these massive exploits he has as a ghoul to his advantage. Mm-hmm. The kind of like regeneration from radiation that he like naturally has as a ghoul. There's like all sorts of.
I love the. I was reading something out there. There's like he probably has the bloody mess perk because his like a lot of his kills are extra gory.
He has the cannibal, like I don't know if he has I don't think he has the lady, like we didn't see indications of the lady killer or confirmed bachelor perk, but we did see the cannibal stuff from him for sure. When he cannibalized the other ghoul.
When he eats the other ghoul, yeah.
Yeah. And he tells her ass jerky don't cut itself, get to work.
Yeah. But then we also have that like the tease of did he eat this unnamed or this named person off screen or whatever, and it's like, oh no, it turns out it's the sister. No, he didn't actually like eat her, he's just eating chicken or whatever.
Yeah.
When like there he's eating chicken there in that scene,
and so that's that's the thing, we saw him,
maybe he didn't fuck the chicken.
Yeah, maybe he didn't fuck the chicken. Like that's the whole point of that scene though, is like you've already seen him eat somebody. Mm-hmm. And so again, cut somebody up very brutally and viciously to like get some food. And so like that's the whole like, oh yeah, no, and then like I love how he just calls it. He goes, "Or is your son gonna let me walk out of here?" Because I see that look in his eye, and you're like, "Fuck yes, I love this scene. It's such a good scene." It's like I already like here's the bloody letter that your brother had on him, and there's a hole through it for like where it would have been, and you're like, man, he is just like he is such the morally evil character. And like he is 100% like I am the ghoul. I've lived in the wasteland for 200 years. I'm a dick.
It is that like I mean of the three obviously, but also like he is still. I mean, he's fucking up bad people too.
That's the whole thing, right? Yeah. He's a bad person doing bad things to bad people, so we root for him.
Yeah,
and that's really the great thing. It's like he's evil. But like all like from the point of view of the show is like everybody's bad. Mm-hmm. The vault people that you're like, oh, these are the good people. It's like, no, these were the rich assholes who hid away while the world burned.
Yeah,
and many of them are a part.
I love that. I love that the cousin who's super in love with Lucy or whatever. Him having that moment of like, we're all cowards. That's why we live in a vault.
So good, like such great self reflection of like we're all cowards. Yeah.
Yeah. I liked the twist on the Vault 4 where like the scientists that we see in that like commercial kind of that they're recording in the past ended up being like their experiment was a vault just run by unfettered science and like having to have no ethics, and so the implication that they were bringing in like survivors and experimenting on them and testing on them and creating gulpers and ultimately like that ends up leading to their demise. And so hundreds of years later, when we're in that vault, it's the survivors of those experiments who have like done what like the most idyllic version of a vault. Like they probably ended up doing the vault the right way kind of thing.
Well, it's played for laughs, but really they are like the best society that we see.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love is it's like, oh yeah, these surface dwellers, but we got to do tolerance.
Yeah.
And it's like, I forgot the actor's name who plays that
Chris Parnell.
Chris Parnell's so damn good. I fucking love Chris Parnell. He's had probably one of like the best post SNL careers of all time. Whether it's just like
it's like he is the like under the radar MVP of a post SNL career. Like he's not been in the biggest things. He's not a Kristen Wiig who's out there doing Bridesmaids or like the big movies or whatever. But like he's been so consistently good in everything he's done. He's done Archer. He's done Rick and Morty. Like stuff like this.
I mean, numerous shows where he's like shows up for a cameo or just like a one episode thing, guest starring.
Dr. Spaceman.
Dr. Spaceman, all time great, like 30 Rock character. Yeah, you have so many great great roles that he's done, and this is up there for me. Because he plays a Cyclops, and when Lucy's just like, I see you've been experimenting, they're like, no, these are people who like they're basically like they're hospice. They're hospice like survivors of the mutant stuff, and we're just trying to keep them in like ease their pain and keep them like, you know, living as long as they can. Like, and then they like play the tape and then he starts crying. He goes, sorry.
That was my great uncle.
That was my great uncle. And it's like, oh. And when Lucy realizes I've made a massive mistake and she's like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, it's too late. She's like
we're going to kick you out. And then he like slowly cuts the
thing.
The
and he hands it back to
we need the sharpened.
Yeah. And he goes, okay, we're going to throw you out. And here's 2 weeks worth of provisions.
Yeah. And yes, we will have someone carry it to the surface for you.
And it's just such a, like, these are such good people who, it's like, these people weren't original vault dwellers. They found the vault and they've made an idyllic society within it to the point where they still take in people from the surface. They brought in survivors of Shady Sands who are... Turns out, weirdo religious fanatics.
I was going to say, yeah, like weird nudist cult.
Weird nudist cult where they rub dead ashes on themselves. It's weird as hell.
And there's a whole other, like the flame mother aspect of the Moldaver character.
Like, what the fuck is this?
Like, all right, we got, like, my theory is that she's like a series of clones or something, and we're going to see her, like, and the flame mother is like, she always rises from the ashes or something like that.
Oh,
and
that's
so
cool.
This one died. The one at Shady Sands probably died. And so we'll see her again in season 2 is my theory.
Do you think maybe it's like a clone is made at, or maybe she's like has like perfect regeneration? Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe because the one who is at the observatory is still in love with Lucy's mom.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works exactly. I'm curious. I'm very curious if maybe the clones are made one at a time and like send something back to the OG kind of brain, kind of like Bud is the original Moldaver like a brain in a jar, and then like she produces clones with the most updated like firmware or software from her.
Yeah, here are the latest memories she has.
Yeah, and then they send it out, and I'm like, that would make sense, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Love the whole thing with like Lucy's mom finding out like, oh hey, somebody's siphoning our water. I think there might be survivors on the surface, and Hank being like, the dumb, shut up, and her being like,
yeah. I mean, I also enjoyed the water chip being destroyed as a nod to the original game.
Fantastic.
And then like we don't really get any kind of follow up to it, so that's still a lingering like thread out there of like, hey, you can resettle these other vaults all you want, but I guess having people in Vault 32, you can get water shared with them or whatever. But yeah, like the fact that Vault 33 has a destroyed water chip and will need more water. Seems like that's not going to be a that will be a thing.
But I don't know if that actually was the like. So my theory is that was done to artificially induce a panic in Vault 33. So between the Raider stuff and then the panic to get whatever her name is to reelected as overseer.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of other stuff still going on in the Vault,
which is great.
31, 32, 33, because it's like, okay, those bodies were there and dead for a couple years. Moldaver and the Raiders came through, seemingly didn't really disturb the bodies, just showed up to like take part in this trade, pretend to be the overseer, take part in this trade, like kill, like why did they? Or I guess we find out why she doesn't kill Hank, and when she has that malicious vengeance towards him of I need the code. Shout out to the code being the release date of the original Fallout.
Yep. Easter eggs so all over the place, man. Yeah. Such a great love letter to the series. Also, shout out to turns out Jonathan Nolan, massive Fallout fan.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, there's still weird stuff there of like, okay, like how did Vault 32 get cleaned up overnight? Especially like my initial thought was like, oh, whatever the bigger conspiracy with Vault 31 is, Vault 31 people came and helped. And then when you find out like Vault 31 is just a head in a jar and a bunch of people in cryosleep, it's like, no, that didn't happen clearly.
I mean, maybe he let them out of cryosleep. They cleaned it up and then they went back into cryosleep.
Yeah, I suppose that is a possibility, but it definitely like is. I don't know if it's intentionally leaving things open-ended or if it's like, well, we just didn't write that part. That's there. There's a lot of that kind of sense in this series where it's like it doesn't tie things up so neatly that I have faith that these aren't like loose plot threads.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
They
could be.
Yeah. There's a lot of weird vibes like that, and that goes back to like what was Moldaver's original intent of getting in there. Like, was she there to try and bring back Lucy? Yeah, what? Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, also it was very weird. Like, there's nothing to like it. It is just an amusing thing where like anytime Norm was on screen, I was like, oh my god, this guy is so short. Like, and they don't like they don't distinctly like call it out. Apart from like framing him with the cousin who seems to be abnormally tall at times of like, they've got kind of a Laurel and Hardy-esque vibe or something like that. But I liked, I mean, there was so much to enjoy about just his like quest for knowledge, especially given that he's like the layabout who, doesn't care about anything at the beginning. He's playing games on his Pip-Boy at the beginning.
Well, they bring up, he outright tells her, like they go through his like file and basically it's like he's been dissatisfied with every job.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. This is very much somebody who's like, I don't care about anything that they've asked me to do. And so I'm like, I feel like it's a little bit of a like bored genius type thing. Like he's probably very smart. I mean, Lucy seems to be very smart as well.
Also, do you think he's the one that did the rat poison? I feel like the show sets it up, but they don't really like.
I feel like he is the one that did it.
Yeah. It's either him or it was like
the overseer.
I don't think the overseer so much as the one-eyed widow.
Yeah, maybe she did.
Because she comes in, she's like, they got what they deserved, didn't they?
That's like, true. Yeah. That's when I kind of wavered. I didn't know if it was Norm or her.
And she obviously also being a Vault 31 original that is going to become the interim overseer. It's like, oh yeah, okay.
Well, also like she also had like a very like obsession with her husband. Because she like the cousin like. Lucy's cousin ends up becoming like a stand-in. Yeah. And when they have sex for the first time, she's making him wear her dead husband's stuff.
As the baby then gets born.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wild thing.
That was a man, there's some wild ass shit in this show, and it kicks off episode 1. Because we have like a like rompous sex scene with Lucy and her like supposed husband.
Yeah. Now I'm like, I kind of want to go back and rewatch a scene to see if you see the other Vault 31 people there at Vault Tech in like the backgrounds of shots.
Oh, that's a good point. Maybe
like, because I like that they set up the tease early on with like Henry calling the house, and then obviously before the eventual reveal that Henry is Hank.
Also, shout out to him calling out the movie. Like, I love that scene. It's the scene
that's the scene that he hated.
That he hated, that he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Fucking fantastic. Also, shout out to him being the original, like the Ghoul being the original Vault Boy.
Yeah.
they like after whatever happened, there was the fallout of all of that that led to his divorce and stuff. Clearly, they like replastered it as like not him, as like a generic blonde like mascot. So good. And his whole thing, like, I'll give a thumbs up. And then, but revealing the first episode, the reason why the thumb is up is the whole, like, you see how far away the radioactive blast is to know whether or not you should even bother running.
What a horrifying thing to tell a little girl.
Well, yeah, but then we have the follow-up scene of she goes, Daddy, is your thumb or mine?
Yeah.
And he goes, what?
Yeah. No, it's just a fire.
By the way, this has turned into a fantastic meme because it's the wide shot of the kids watching the TV and then the ghoul and his daughter watching the bomb go off.
Mm-hmm.
But it's split, like on TikTok, it's split between two photos, each half of it. And so like one of them is like people oblivious to something, slide over, people who are like distinctly aware of something happening is like the format. And it's been used to great effect. I've enjoyed it quite a bit.
There you go. I looked it up a while ago, and I just want to shout out as another fun Chris Parnell role. He's also the narrator of the Maneater game.
Yes.
Where you play as the shark, and he's basically doing the Shark Week voiceover. So shout out to him in that as well.
Yeah. Also shout out to him being like the racist like leader, like who's like the racist tolerant leader, which is like such a fantastic thing for him to be pulling off.
As the one-eyed mutant.
Yeah, as the one-eyed mutant. He's talking about like tolerance. He goes, takes a sip of coffee. Ooh, that one's old. That one's old. It's like he has problems with depth perception. Reads Lucy as Goosey. All sorts of stuff. It's great.
Yeah. Trying to think any other items, moments, anything you want to call out? Oh, back to Norm. I loved the hacking mini game that he has to play to get into the Overseer's computer.
Yes.
Like the legit Fallout 3, Fallout 4 hacking game.
It's so good. Oh man, it was so good. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Any of the Norm Vault investigation stuff, I was like on the edge of my seat waiting for the next reveal. Because it's like, okay, we've never seen vaults connected before. What is this experiment supposed to be? And then you find out, oh, it's not really, it's like, it's something of an experiment. Buds, like genetically.
Management is I love that, like, that something that stupid is the impetus for all of the other weird psycho experiments that we get. At least per this show of like, Bud has this idea and we wanted to float that concept out to the rest of you to come up with whatever wacky things you want to try. It's like Bud's idea is wildly stupid. It's just
so
like,
dumb.
I want to bring middle manager. The thing that, will help is time, but we're going to need middle management into the future or whatever. Or I guess he never says middle management. He is just a middle manager, but like the management is the most important thing. So let's figure out a way to have managers, prolonged into the future.
Carefully breeding, making a careful breeding program for producing the best possible managers. Yeah.
And then, there's this weird little element of like, okay, is it just that Vaults 32 and 33 are like suckers for a catchy slogan of like Vault 31, Vote 31 or whatever?
They are. They're conditioned, man. It's great.
Or is it that the things are actually rigged, and they've never been able to identify, because like everybody's very happy to tell I voted for Betty or whatever. Like, so it's like clearly they've always just historically voted for whoever 31 is. And was that somehow just plugged into their conditioning of like, no, we just always need to vote for that vault? Or anyway, like I love that they never questioned it.
Also, she split up her political rivals, sending one to Vault 32.
Yeah.
I'm leaving. I'm not going. This is my home.
I don't want to do this. Oh, okay. You're right. That was a bad idea. I'm sorry. I love it, especially because it was that guy that you've seen. Like he was the like Spider-Man do a flip guy, and he's on the bus in Shang-Chi, and he's just been like he's been one of those growing like he's been doing like little one-line things in various things. Zach Cherry,
I thought he was fantastic.
It's always fun seeing him pop up and stuff, and here he is in probably one of his biggest roles to date.
I'm trying to think. I don't think there was a single role that I thought was poorly cast in. Maximus just feels like a very just not fleshed out character. Because when you got to actually do like have more lines, consistent lines, dialogue back and forth with people, I liked Maximus's character, but he gets so little of that until episode like 5.
Yeah, I thought I was disappointed by the end with the Michael Emerson Wilzig role, like the fact that he's only in like episode 2, Linus from Lost,
Yeah.
Or Ben Linus from Lost, like especially just given his like status as like one of these kind of like I expected him to be more of a Kyle MacLachlan kind of character in this, of like he's a big name, he's a recognizable performer, so we're gonna like milk that. And the fact that he's really only in one episode, is he really Enclave? Because that gets like dropped a couple times and then just never again, or like what's the deal there?
Well, there's the hint about the super mutants, that they're still if the Enclave is still around, they're still experimenting with super mutants.
But like are they experimenting with super mutants, or like, because the other theory I've seen is like it's maybe a West Tech facility, because they're the ones that created the FEV that created super mutants,
Maybe.
And like and but that there's a whole like, well, you know, that might explain why they had the cold fusion thing, that, you know, since Vault-Tec bought it and shelved it, it might just be in one of their like partners' warehouses after the Vault-Tec, you know, combination of conglomerations and stuff. But yeah, he came in and was dispatched so quickly that I was like, that's disappointing. I would have liked more from him.
Mm-hmm.
I would like, especially like him as a knowledgeable character of the Wasteland. I think that's something that I felt was missing. Is
a little more context to the Wasteland they were in.
Yeah, like, because Maximus is giving his very skewed perspective. The Ghoul, we're not really getting a ton from him in that kind of context. So like, I would have liked just a little more, I think, in terms of like, well, here's what's really going on, or something. Like also, how did he know so much? Like, he knew very specifically what was going on in Vault 31, 32, and 33, seemingly. And
I will say there was something interesting about his character in that I just pulled up like Wikipedia, and he's not called an Enclave scientist.
right.
The description is that he's a wanderer. But however, episode 2 is like he was at an Enclave facility.
Like, Enclave is mentioned a couple times in the first episode, and that's it. Like, it's not even confirmed to be an Enclave facility in episode 2. Like,
outside of the fact that
there's nothing out there that says Enclave.
No, but it's the guy, if I recall, I'm trying to recall, but I believe the like armed guards and stuff were all in Enclave uniforms and stuff.
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like we just see mostly like scientists and maybe just kind of nondescript armed guard. Because especially Enclave, I think of the Enclave power armor more so than anything else, and we don't see that. Because there's also the idea, like, if you take the games as canon, both East Coast and West Coast Enclaves are largely wiped out by the events of this, because Enclave on the West Coast gets wiped out in Fallout 2, and Enclave in the East is wiped out in 3 and 4, mostly. So yeah, it's just kind of a like, is Enclave an Easter egg reference for fans as like they said the thing, or is it really Enclave and then we just didn't really follow up with that? Is, I think, where that's where my, like, not even grievance, but like, I think that ties into the, like, he had the potential to be a very fascinating character.
Yes, I agree.
And the fact that he's like in and out and like dispatched so quickly felt like a waste.
No, I agree with you. I think that's definitely the case for that character. I think that was like, I felt a bit depressed, like not depressed, but like, it sucks that he's like just not in the show anymore. His dead head is, which is fantastic. It's used for great effect, but
yeah.
But yeah.
Shout out to the golden rule of thou shalt be sidetracked by bullshit every goddamn time.
So good.
Yeah, fun, like easily, and one of the biggest nods to playing the Fallout games. So yeah, like I had a ton of fun with this. I was like, it was nice to, as somebody who just kind of like, I've been so distracted or like focused on just enjoying Stardew Valley or whatever, that like when this came out, I checked out an episode, but only kind of half-heartedly. So to sit down and actually watch the rest of it It like I think I was telling you, like I watched basically like 6 episodes in one night and then finished up the next two yesterday, and just kind of enjoyed Fallout over the weekend. So shout out to that, and yeah, I mean, like even halfway through watching the series, I was like, all right, I'm gonna boot up my Xbox for the first time in a while, download Fallout New Vegas, and I'll have that ready for me. So now I've been switching my time between Stardew and Fallout New Vegas.
Good thing to be caught between.
What it has ended up being is I'll be working on my Stardew farm, and I will accidentally, because I've been, doing mines and stuff, I'll have like bombs equipped, and I'll accidentally drop a bomb on my crops when I'm like picking crops and stuff, and it just like blows everything up. I'm like, well, fuck that. Like close the game out so I can restart that day the next time I do it, and then I switch over to playing on Xbox, and jump into Fallout. So, yeah, it's. I wish there was like a new Fallout thing I could really be jumping into.
I will say I tried jumping into Fallout 76. I don't recommend it for you. I dropped out of it. I'm like, I see especially now that they've introduced like NPCs as like the settler system. I see how all of that is working. I get it. It's just there's not it doesn't got spurs that jingle, jangle, jingle.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But hey, shout out to New Vegas, and Fallout 4 is getting a patch update this week for kind of next gen stuff. Finally, 8 years later or whatever.
How Bethesda of them.
Yeah. I think Fallout. I mean, like it's been interesting seeing like Fallout Shelter, which I'd completely forgot was a thing, despite having like poured a bunch of time and stuff into it when it came out, and then I have the platinum for it on PlayStation when it came to console.
I do in fact have like loaded up. I was playing that
Fallout Shelter
during the show, and when I was watching the show, I was playing it. I was like, this is still a really good game.
Yeah.
Shout out to that being like my first ever review too. I wrote that for Irrational Passions for like their monthly roundup. I did I did it for that release, and I talked about how I became a eugenicist in that game.
A geneticist?
A eugenicist.
A eugenicist, yeah.
I specifically created a breeding program, not to create middle managers, but instead to maximize statistics.
Sure, yeah. I never got that in the weeds with it. I was happy to use the facilities to like build up my crew skills. But yeah, I didn't. Once I got somebody who had like 10s across the board, I didn't suddenly be like, all right, they're my number one breeder now. But yeah,
I did that.
I
created literally an entire generation of super people who had like top stats in just about every single thing, and I was like crossbreeding them at that point. Then I stopped playing it for a while. Mm-hmm. By the time I went back, I was like, I'll pick up a new vault, and I won't be, because I'll be honest, I found myself very like kind of like, ooh, this is not good. Like I went a very like
this has revealed some things about me I need to question and analyze.
The fact that I took like statistical like a statistical look at this and said, maximize it, boost, like pump the numbers up, get in the training facilities, pump those numbers up, all of that, and then like crossbreeding people. It's like I need people. If I'm gonna like, I should not be in charge of people. Mm-hmm. On this level of things anyway, like survival of the human race. Like, don't get me wrong, like I produce like a bunch of super people, but like, at what cost?
But yeah, how incestuous were those super people?
It wouldn't work. You couldn't, like, they had to be.
You couldn't do like parent and child, but like 2 generations removed.
Yes,
it was fine.
I did.
Yeah.
I kept the rule that they have in the vault 33 vault. So it's fine if you want to mess around with cousins, but you can't be breeding with them.
That's not a prolonged breeding strategy. Yeah.
The Lucy is abject, like saying like horrible shit with just like a straight face and be like, yeah, no. It's like this show from the get-go tells you, hey, yeah, incest is like a casual joke topic in this show.
Yeah.
We're putting that out there.
Yeah. Like, and then also we talked about this a little bit, like the sudden, like her to Maximus, do you want to have sex? And him just not knowing what that is at all.
It's like, what is that?
As a child who grew up in the Brotherhood. Yeah.
Which as somebody who grew up like in a religious, like within a very religious family, very much like, I feel you on some level, Maximus, on this. I feel you on some level. Like, the lack of sex education is a real problem. Don't, if you, like, to all the people who didn't get sex ed out there and you're now a full grown adult, if you're,
Yes, those people that are listening to our podcast.
yeah, if your groin swells up and pops like a pimple, it's okay. It's a normal thing. I love how she's like, ideally it's supposed to happen every time. And he was like, oh, gross. I'm like,
yeah. Shout out to getting the war never changes line not once but twice in the final episode there.
said by the husband and wife.
Yep.
And here's the thing: he was listening to her when she said it the first, like, chronologically, she said it first. He just said it earlier in that episode, which is just like such a good nod.
Yep.
Such a good, like, yeah.
Yep, indeed. So solid, fun show. Looking forward to seeing where they go in season 2, especially if they are heading more into the Mojave Wasteland, and we're going to get to see some New Vegas shenanigans in too, because there will like New Vegas being a locale from the modern Fallout games.
Yeah.
Is going and it being one of the ones that I think is getting a big resurgence in popularity based on the show right now, people jumping into it either for the first time or to revisit it. Like, I will be curious, like, do we see the boomers? Do we see the cons? Do we see the Legion or whatever's out there with the Legion? Shout out
especially if they make the poet kid the leader of the Great Khans in the show, but he's older.
I don't recall the kid you're talking about, but okay.
I'm sure
it's a deep cut.
It's a side quest in the game, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. But yeah, I think there's a lot of fun to be had in the future of Fallout. And I definitely have my nitpicks with it. It was still by and large a fun time and a solid adaptation of like the world of Fallout, which is always the most, I think, fascinating aspect of it. So yeah, shout out to that. Shout out to even Dogmeat as a character.
Sorry, Dogmeat, but you ain't him.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. You follow Cameron at Rev Cabot, 2 B's and 2 T's. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I want to get a shout out to the ghoul having jingle, jangle, jingle on his spurs. Okay.
That is sure. That's a shout out. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. We didn't have that Deep Plus show last week. Took the week off.
Although massive shout out to you finishing Infinite Wealth.
That's what I was gonna say. The Let's Play of Infinite Wealth wrapped up. No current plans for a new Let's Play series or anything to start up this week, so we'll probably be on hiatus from those for a little while. But if you are interested, there are like 28, 29 episodes of Fallout or of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth for you to go back and check out. So enjoy that as we finished that one up this last week. And yeah, we'll be back with more next week on whatever else we're going to chat about. I think probably some Eiyuden Chronicle thoughts from Cam, who's been playing that this week with his backer edition. It comes out this week, so I'll probably hop into it and play some. So that'll probably be one of the things we cover on next week's show. So stay tuned for that. You follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us. Once again, if you liked what you heard, please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. As always, thank you for listening. Stay nerdy and be good to each other.